You did just play recently in Birmingham?
Yeah, it's quite a legendary festival run by an organisation of women that we know really well, that we've known for years anyway. It's fantastic Supersonic, because it really is. It's nice to see, it's essentially 4 to 5 women that run the whole thing, you know. It's nice to see, A, it isn't a male-dominated environment, B, it's people who just genuinely connect and love the music. And it was really nice, yeah, Supersonic is Birmingham, you know, so, that's Godflesh's roots, you know.
Yeah.
Right there, that was where Godflesh began, you know. So it was really our first UK show together as Ben and I, as Godflesh, as the original Godflesh. We worked out, we last played Birmingham, was about 1991, I think.
Whoa.
So it was, you know, it was literally an eternity ago, you know.
Yeah.
So it was a real pleasure, and it was an absolutely fantastic show as well. I mean, oddly enough, it was quite possibly one of the best Godflesh shows we have ever played, you know. And that's including our entire career since 1988. So, I mean, you know, that proves to us how exciting this still is, you know, how thrilling this still is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the level of appreciation felt tenfold what it was when we even existed, you know.
Well, and I think it is. I think that is probably real.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite bizarre. I think it's, you know, obviously you leave this, and I think somehow the music has, you know, has managed to stay with people, and it sort of becomes a legend, quote unquote, which for us is hard to see, obviously, but it's an honour to be took so seriously, you know, to some extent, and see that it is meaningful, you know. Mm-hmm. It does resonate with people worldwide. It was a pleasure, an honour, and, you know, absolutely thrilling again, and we are thoroughly excited to play more as Godflesh worldwide, but in a very select fashion. But we are excited to do it, you know.
Yeah, I see you're scheduled for Roadburn.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Which is playing Street Cleaner in its entirety, you know.
It may have to be there.
Yeah. I think a few people are going to travel worldwide for that. You know, even when we played Hellfest, which unfortunately was a bit of a disaster due to a lot of ridiculous things, really. Supersonic was amazing, but what we've realised is people travelling worldwide, you know, to get to these Godflesh performances, which is just astonishing, you know. We're still quite in shock about the way this has been for Godflesh, you know.
Well, it seems, and I could be wrong, but was it sort of an incompletion for you when Godflesh ended?
Yeah, as a lot of people who followed the band are aware, you know, the end of the group was messy.
Yeah.
It was quite horrible, you know. In many, many, many respects, it was a real messy end. It would be a cliche to call it unfinished business stuff, you know. I mean, that's sort of whatever, really. I think we just needed a lot of time off, a lot of years away from this to have some sort of sense of perspective about what we were and what we can quite possibly be now, you know. Not that we're suddenly looking at 3 years on the road doing a worldwide tour and knocking out 3 new albums in that time. Quite far from it, really. It's like I said, we're only interested in very select performances, and in terms of any new Godflesh material, again, that isn't something that we would find easy, you know.
Right.
You know, I'd be lying to say I didn't have riffs, etc., but it's something that would take, you know, we wouldn't want to take the easy route. It's very easy these days, it seems, for people to reform and knock out a very lazy record, you know.
Well, but that's never been what Godflesh ever did.
Exactly.
Even though your records were in the same vein, each one of them changed radically, and it's obvious that you push the envelope each time, regardless of how well received each Godflesh record was.
Yeah, exactly. As we never took the easy route, you know. I mean, you know, people would, you know, critics around the time of Street Cleaner, and then when we went from that to Slave State and onwards, I think people were always surprised that we didn't just knock out another 5 Street Cleaners, you know. I mean, you know, this is fairly standard, the way bands generally find a successful template and, you know, exhaust it, you know, drain it of its very life by making the same record over and over again, because it's a formula that's successful, you know. We obviously never ever took that route. In fact, we made a few suicidal moves, you know.
Really?
We would do things that absolutely pleased us without any regard for fans or critics, you know. It was it's an entirely selfish way of making music, but for me that's the only way to make music.
Well, yeah, but we want to hear what's coming out of you.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, you can only, you know, as this is it, as a musician I can only consider my own tastes first. As soon as it gets down to, there's always going to be people around you, or always people suggesting that, well, if you do this and do that, you could sell a lot of records, you know, you can make a lot of money and all the rest of it, but it's just like, it would be soul-destroying for me to do anything that isn't what I feel a completely 100% honest expression of what I wish to do as an artist. I mean, you know, it's each to their own. People find successful formulas and wish to reap the benefits of it, and then fine. And some of these people, obviously, it's a pleasure to discover a successful winning formula and to consistent.
And to stay with it.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's fine. You know, each to their own. It's just, it would depress me to actually to exist like that. You know, to make something to order, so to speak. So yeah. I mean, this is it. That you know, as a consequence, it means a new Godflesh album would be extremely challenging to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it would need to be challenging. I mean, but you know, the small amounts of stuff that I have written already, or you know, even if it's just primitive riff writing, you know, it's quite obvious that it would be an extremely heavy, brutal record. It would still probably be an examination of what Godflesh was and much more. It's just not that easy for us, you know. So.
Right, yeah. Well, and I think that because you've, you know, always pushed yourself and changed and put pressure on yourselves to make sure that your expression is true, that may be why it's actually easier for you to revisit Godflesh now, because it wasn't one thing that was stuck with one period.
Yeah, that could be seen as very true. Like, very, very, very true. To be honest, I mean, it's just... I don't know, maybe this isn't unusual, but for me, if I work on one thing and I'm, like, buried in it, buried in one project, I get really tired very easy, actually. I get bored, you know, quite literally. I find it tedious after a while. I mean, this is what I used to find about touring, you know. I used to find spending 2, 3, 4, 5 months on the road around the world playing the same songs every night, I would find soul-destroying eventually, you know.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's faking it eventually. The passion for it runs out, you know. And as soon as the passion runs out, then for me, I'm just, you know, I'm dead in the water. You know what I mean? It doesn't. It's meaningless. It becomes absolutely meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and music for me has so much meaning. I've not toured for a number of years now, and there's many reasons for that. And you know, that's one of the reasons. I can't just keep repeating myself. I find it absolutely nullifying and utterly pointless. I mean, obviously, the industry exists upon this as well, and in the current climate, it's an absolute necessity that bands play live as much as they can, because nobody's buying records, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yes it is.
So it's a shame, because that's coincided with my absolute not wanting to do it. So it's like,
right.
So I better watch it in terms of my living, you know. But, you know, it's like somehow I've managed to just about scrape a living out of music for a number of years now, but nobody's buying records anymore, so I'm going to have to... might take to begging soon as well.
Well, and then I'm wondering if sort of being... I mean, because Godflesh spanned really from the analog age into the digital age.
Yeah.
Like, if the advent of digital could make touring easier or more flexible for you, because my guess is that the Godflesh setup was so rigid and just so task-oriented that it probably might not have been that easy to change up a set. Is that more of an option now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, with Godflesh, even going backwards as we are, there is such a wealth of material. And like you say, it's much... We don't have to rely now upon using drum machines that have only just come into play, you know what I mean? They're not we're not using archaic technology anymore. We're using modern, super-duper technology, you know what I mean? And it's something I've become well-versed with over the years, you know, because essentially I'm a studio musician.
Mm-hmm.
So I use and embrace most modern music technology, you know. For something new in music technology, I want to know about it, you know what I mean? I'll be there as quick as I can to discover the... So yeah, I mean, you know, and there is such a wealth of material for Godflesh to delve into. But it's, I mean, at the moment, we've done very little show-wise, but all we've done is of a certain period as well, because it's a period that we felt was the truest Godflesh period, but, you know, we'll probably feel completely differently in about 6 months' time, but
there you go.
All we've done is play material from, basically from the first Godflesh album through to the Pure album, and that's the material that we felt honours the memory of Godflesh. I was looking at the website